What's up, bitches, and welcome back to Nerdgasm. I'm in the hosting chair, which means someone fucked up. It's Kaleb Koho, and we've got a good matchup between two guys who we haven't necessarily totally seen full on in Nerdgasm yet, but it's going to be really exciting to see how they do. Joe Harrison, Kirk Kowalkowski in the ring. It's going to be great. But first, I will throw it over to my judges, starting with the disappointed parent, Cody Newberry. How you doing, Cody?
Yeah, the only reason he's the main host is this is the time before my kids go to sleep, so chaos can ensue out there, so I have to be able to break away if possible. But yeah, this should be a fun one. I think Kirk is very underrated in debate. I've literally seen some of his matches in a place that we don't speak of, but it happened. I've seen him play over there, so and I've seen Joe, and Joe pulled off a win last time, so again, anything's possible. I thought Scully would win that one. Joe ended up pulling it out. So, these are two people that I think some people in the league will underestimate, but I'm excited to see what happens. So,
as a certain purger would say, pulled that one out of their booty hole. All right, we're going to go over to our my lovely Irishman friend, Doug Castle. How you doing, Doug?
Oh, I love it that I get the nice treatment now. No, I'm doing good. I'm going to just take a line from the trailer that Multiplex put out. I'm here to just laugh. But no, in all honesty, I've actually judged both of these before in the Forsaken Zone. And I'm excited to see what they bring to Nerdgasm.
Can we officially call it the Forsaken Zone? That's kind of cool. All right.
I think we have to put Dragon out there somewhere, but I'm not sure.
The Forsaken Dragon Zone. There we go. All right. We're going to go ahead. We're going to interview some recommenders. We're going to start with Joe. Joe, you're in the Nerdgasm ring today with Kirk. How do you feel?
I feel good. As everyone said, there was no reason I should have beat Scully. We all know it. That came out of nowhere. That was unexpected. It was fun, though. I'm just here to have fun and just talk about some nerdy topics with Kirk. I'm just here to have a good time, and whatever happens, happens.
I love this happy-go-lucky, carefree, plucky attitude. I'm sure we're not going to get anything like that when we talk to Kirk. Kirk, how do you feel about taking on Joe today?
I'm feeling okay. Yeah, I like Joe. Joe's a good guy. He and I have played against each other in some places. We've hosted together. We have some experience. So, yeah, Joe's a good guy. And it's going to be a fun match. I think there's some stuff on here that I know pretty well. I think there's stuff on here he probably knows better than me. So it's going to be interesting to see what we can pull out and, just make work for us in the fights.
All right. Well, that's enough jibber-jabber talk from us up top. We'll go ahead. We'll get into the debates, how this works. There's freeform, 3 rounds of the freeform. That'll be timed. You'll each get an opening and a closing, and then a sandwiched in the middle freeform debate discussion. 3 rounds of that, and then we have 2 speed round questions. Should we need to go to the speed round? Oh, sorry. What are you doing, Cody?
It's 4 questions. They each put in 1 speed round question.
You're right. 4 questions now, 1 speed round. I'm getting used to that. That's weird to say. There's 4 rounds of freeform and 1 speed round, just like a la jukebox used to be. So we'll go ahead and we'll get right into the first question. All right. So your first question in this first round of debate is a Rocky question, because we love Rocky here. If there was another Rocky spinoff, who should it focus on? We're going to go ahead. We're going to start with Joe. Time begins when you start talking for your opening.
So the character I decided we should focus on for a new Rocky spinoff is Apollo Creed's former manager, and then, of course, he helped train Rocky in later movies, and that is Tony Duke Elvers. I think when it comes to Rocky, yes, we always see the point of view of the athletes, and while that is very interesting to see a sports movie that follows the athletes, I think a sports movie that really would dive into Tony Duke Elvers as this caring manager and this caring trainer, because as we see with both in the first 2 Rocky movies where he's very much a part of Apollo Creed and he's just very much he's there and supporting for him. I think if we were to go back and see Tony Duke Elvers as a trainer and a manager with other boxers and just see how he kind of really evolved in terms of training, if he had always been this caring and personal trainer and manager, or if he might have been a different kind of manager, and kind of to be able to kind of do a prequel to see where Tony Duke Elvers came from and to explore that in a spinoff would be something very interesting in terms of sports movies and not just Rocky movies.
Time. All right. Closing it right on time there. Kirk, time begins for your opening when you start talking.
Okay, when you talk about Rocky characters that we deserve to hear more of their story. I went with a character who has a lot of mystique and aura about him that we don't know too much about. I picked Ivan Drago. Drago is just this big menacing figure that we don't know too much about. He's just there. His strings are being pulled. We see his kind of fall from grace at the end of Rocky 4, and then we see the long-term results of that in Creed 2. But I'd like to see more about him. I mean, we could do a prequel style, find out about his life growing up. We can do, what happened to him after Rocky 4, immediately, his fall from grace in the Soviet Empire, what happened to him when the Soviet Empire fell, how that affected him. There's 3 possible storylines that we could do with. We could do one, we focus on one, we do all 3, however you want to do it. But I think this is a real goldmine of a character to explore. There's a lot we can see about him. He's very interesting, and it'd be great to take the villain and kind of turn him to a hero and see what he's like. Concede.
All right, cool, perfect. Ending a little bit early. All right, so freeform, guys. Time begins when you start talking.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, the thing about Duke is Duke's a manager, and Rocky's always about the fighter. And I'm not going to say Duke's not an interesting character. I think the closest we came to a Duke movie was Rocky Balboa. We saw him really get involved in Rocky's training, and that's what we're going to see with him. If we're going to do a whole movie about the manager, we're going to be looking over his shoulder trying to see the fight behind him, because that's what we see. We're going to see the fighters. He's a great supporting character. He's not going to be interesting as a main character.
I would actually disagree, because in terms of sports movies, I think it would be interesting, because we don't really always need to see a fight in order, or the big game. I think kind of seeing the growth as Duke as a manager and kind of seeing how he interacts with different clients would be a very interesting take on the sports movies, where we always focus on coaches in different sports movies, it's always about the game, but to really focus on the character as the manager and see how he interacts with his clients and kind of cares for them in terms of injuries, in terms of types of matches, how to train them in preparation. I think to really see his thought process behind it and more instead just supporting scenes would be really interesting. And when it comes to Ivan Drago, I think kind of you really kind of don't really need another movie for it, because him being the big menacing imposing threat he was in Rocky 4, and then the long-term effects in Creed 2 were such a good way for his character to develop and grow. And I think that kind of trying to sandwich something in the middle of how he got to this point, or even a prequel of how he became this menacing, this machine for the Soviet Union, wouldn't really be interesting at all, because I think having him as being this mysterious threat is much more compelling than to kind of see where he came from and to see his fall from grace. We really don't need that, because I don't think, as in terms of sports, I think his fall from grace really wouldn't be an exploration in terms of a Rocky movie. And if you're going to say it's about the fights, in terms of his fall from grace, you really wouldn't be able to see the fights that much.
Well, I would say this. You said, he's this big menacing character, and that he was that. But if that's what we wanted, Creed 2 already spoiled that. Creed 2 really took the wind out of those sails, really humanized the character, so we know he's not that big monster. There's something more to him. So let's find out more about that. Like I said, we can start with his youth, where they found him in the Soviet Union, maybe being taken away from his family, the control the government had over him. As he gets older, we could have like the Rocky 4 era. We could either recast him or do some, de-aging on Dolph Lundgren. And then we can, advance to, the years, with his son and what happens with him and his wife. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, especially after Creed 2, that we're going to want to see answers to. Going back to Duke, there could be an interesting movie there. There's not a good Rocky movie there, because, either A, if, he's training, you're probably going to want to see, people are going to expect to see him training with Apollo. And if you have him train with Apollo is such a more interesting character. To have him off to the side, like I said, people are going to be wanting to see Apollo. People are going to maybe not even just see the fights, but Apollo is such a charismatic, interesting character that it's going to be hard for Duke to take over that. As far as what you were saying about all the different training techniques, like I said, we got that in Rocky Balboa. We saw that was our Duke movie, was Rocky Balboa. We really got his inner workings of what he does when he doesn't have a lot to work with, when he's starting from scratch with somebody who's a huge underdog, how he builds that guy up. That was our Duke movie. Anything else is just basically going to be that again. So again, I think you're going to get a lot of repetition, and there's not as much to mine from Duke as there is from Drago.
in terms of saying that there isn't a lot with Duke, I think there is. Well, yes, we have been able to see in Rocky Balboa him come from having to like build up an underdog and really make him in terms of that. I think kind of seeing we could then go on the opposite because we only saw bits and pieces of it when he was managing Apollo in Rocky 1 and 2. In Rocky 1 and 2 in terms of what he does with someone who's already great and amazing. So we could do something like that, see his different managing styles and his different training styles of have him kind of build someone up.
1 minute, guys.
Thank you. Build someone up from the underdog and then have him see how it evolves and changes as he gets them on top instead of seeing, yes, we know what he's like when he's there and we know what he's like when they're the underdog, seeing that evolution from underdog to champion. And in terms of Ivan Drago, I think it would kind of hurt Rocky IV a little bit in terms of taking him and making him a humanized character because in Rocky IV, you want to hate him so much. And if we were to do a prequel that kind of really humanizes him, you would kind of look at Rocky IV with a little and just be like, kind of feel bad for like running against this guy. Like, yeah, he did these awful things, but now I understand where he's coming from, and now it makes me.
But like I said, we already got that Creed 2. That cat's out of the bag. The Creed 2 already made us feel that way about him. So let's get those answers to the question. We already feel that connection to him through that movie. He was kind of the anti-hero in that movie, where now we have a chance to, okay, all this bad stuff happened to him. Let's find out more about him. What happened to him? Why is he in the situation he is in now?
Time. All right. So. Good freeform, guys. Kirk will go ahead and go to you for closings first. Time against when you start talking.
Okay, like I said, Ivan has so much more in his character to mine. Yes, at one point he was just this awful, menacing figure. But even at the end of Rocky IV, we start to see him humanized when the government starts to turn on him. And Creed 2, we see him now as a fully humanized character. Let's go back. Let's find out his history. Let's find out what got him to Rocky IV and what happened to him afterwards. Like I said, we have a whole lifetime here to explore of this very interesting character. Duke, we got everything we need out of him or Rocky Balboa. We know Apollo was always great. We only saw a little bit of him in the first couple Rocky movies because that's all it really was. Apollo really didn't need Duke that much. And, going back before Apollo's story isn't going to be that interesting. Duke is connected to Apollo. He's connected to Rocky afterwards. On his own, there's really not much. If we're going to do a manager movie, let's do a movie about Mickey. Mickey is a much more compelling figure if you think about his backstory than Duke is. So I definitely think Ivan Drago is the character we want to see a movie about. I can see.
All right, time. All right. Giving up a couple points, or not points. Giving up a couple seconds there at the end there. Joe, time for your closing. Time against when you start talking.
In terms of Ivan Drago, we as you already said, your whole thing where we've seen his character in terms of being compelling and being someone you can sympathize with and everything. You took the wind out of the sails in Creed 2, but that's the whole thing. You really don't need to explore that because we know because kind of going back and seeing where he was before really is interesting. You say that with my character that he's always so attached to Apollo. Yes, he is attached to Apollo. So let's see where he got to, how he was as a manager that made Apollo Creed look at him and say, yes, this is the guy that I would like to manage him. I think that would be very interesting to kind of, just really say that Ivan Drago, we need to know where he came from and why. I don't think we need to. We know that he had a fall from grace and that he didn't always want to be this menacing thing in Creed 2. Like he said, that was what we really all need from Ivan Drago. You're not going to get really that compelling of a story that isn't something that's already like the Soviets having control over people, as we see with different spy thrillers and anything. You'd just be putting a spy thriller into a sports movie, and I really don't think that would be that interesting.
Time. All right. Good fight, guys. Good first fight. To start this one out, we'll bring back our judges, and I'll go ahead and I'll start on this one. I think Kirk won this ring. Kirk did a good job of selling me on the possibilities of what we could get in a Drago movie a little bit more than what I got out of Joe for a Duke movie. He kind of went around in circles a little bit, and Kirk kind of poked holes in it. So I'm going to lean a little bit more in favor of Kirk. Cody, where are you leaning and why?
Yeah, you both picked better options than this question that was in a previous match. Somebody picked Paulie, and that would have been a terrible option.
That's what this actual movie.
I was like, that's rough. But this one, I think Kirk. I think it was a bold picking the trainer of the thing. It just he literally poked holes everywhere, and especially after Creed 2, I think he painted a picture of Drago's life after 4 would be very interesting to see his fall from grace. So I have to give Kirk the point.
All right, so with that, Kirk gets the first point. Doug, your vote did not count. Where would you have leaned real quick and why?
I would have went with Kirk as well. He gave me a more well-rounded film. And it was kind of hard for Joe to come back with all the holes that was punched in the film that he was trying to pitch.
All right, well, moving on to the next question. We venture for the last time, I could say, in the Fox animated world. And your question is, what's the best season of The Simpsons? Kirk, you get to go first for your opening. Time begins when you start talking.
Okay, there have been a lot of great seasons, a lot of great episodes of The Simpsons, obviously. But you got to start and go back and look, when did it hit that peak? When did it become that cultural icon that everybody knows and thinks about when they think about The Simpsons? I picked season 3. If you watch the growth of The Simpsons, season 1's good, season 2 is really good, and season 3 is where it really hits its stride. And that's when we think about the classic Simpsons episodes. That's what we're thinking about. This season won more primetime Emmys than any other season, and it just has some of the greatest episodes, which I'll get into during our argument. Some of the greatest episodes ever of The Simpsons. Even when it was weak, it wasn't that bad. Its weakest episodes are still pretty good, but the episodes that we really remember are fantastic. So yeah, I went with season 3, and I will concede the rest of my time.
Okay, Joe, time begins when you start talking for your opening.
I decided to go with season 8. I think season 8 is strongest in terms of just what it came from, with opening with Treehouse of Horror 7. I think that was a very interesting choice to go with, and that kind of really set the tone, and with how amazing that episode was, and the rest of season 8 having a bunch of also really strong episodes. I think season 8 is really when the Simpsons knew what type of show it wanted to be and the type of comedy it could do, and that was really what felt was such an amazing season, and something that when I look back on the Simpsons and say, what is a season that I just really want to pop on and rewatch and relook at, season 8 would definitely always be my first choice, because it's just such a strong overall season in terms of comedy and storytelling and heartfelt moments between the characters. And for that reason, I am going with season 8, and I will concede the rest of my time.
All right, both conceding their times. We got short round ones. I like it. All right, we're going to get into the main round. Time begins for the freeform when you start talking.
I'll start off talking because you brought it up, the Treehouse of Horror. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the reason they opened with Treehouse of Horror that year is at that time the World Series was on Fox every year by then, and they had opened because it was late October before they could start showing episodes. But if you want to talk just Treehouse of Horror, I have one of the best Treehouse of Horror ever. It's the one where they did the Twilight Zone episodes. It was Treehouse of Horror 2, Lisa's Nightmare, Bart's Nightmare, Homer's Nightmare. A lot of great Twilight Zone and other references. Treehouse of Horror 7, which was your Treehouse of Horror, kind of repetitive. They had a Kang segment. It was
Citizen Kang was such a really good episode. It was such a really good segment, though, in terms of just being also like fun and absurd with the whole with King Kodos impersonating Bill Clinton and Bob Dole just to invaders. I think that was really interesting. I think that's really interesting. And Treehouse of Horror 2, while being a really good Twilight Zone parody episode, I think really isn't even that strong of a Treehouse of Horror. But we're not here to discuss the best Treehouse of Horror episode. If we were here, there are better Treehouse of Horror. There are really better Treehouse of Horror episodes other than our two. But just discussing it as a season overall, I think 8 has more of that heartfelt moments and everything like that, as opposed to season 3. With season 8, when you have stuff the Homer that they fall, you'll have Homer being able to Homer just finally standing up for Bart in that episode, just being like, oh, I'm not showing that he can be a loving father at points, but not being able to, and kind of being that he wants to do something for somebody he really can't. I think that's just such a smart and poignant episode, and I don't think you really get a lot of that in season 3.
I don't know. I mean, you have in season 3, you have Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington, which is one of the most heartfelt episodes of The Simpsons ever. You have Lisa. That's really where you start to build Lisa's character as this person who believes in something and who stands for something, as opposed to pretty much everyone else on that show. This is where Lisa really starts to stand out. You have episodes like Lisa's Pony, which is a great father-daughter episode between Lisa and Homer. But I mean, if we're just talking, I mean, like those heartfelt moments. That's not when you think about The Simpsons. You really don't think about heartfelt moments. You think about the comedy. And I mean, you have episodes like Homer at Bat, one of the greatest episodes. Flaming Moe's, Stark Raving Dad, when Flanders Fell. Like I said, Lisa's Pony, like Father Like Clown. So many great, and like Father Like Clown, great. If you want to talk heartfelt moments between, find out about Krusty and his relationship with his dad. So if you want to talk about, I mean, the humor and just the classic episodes and those character moments, season 3 has it all.
Well, season 3 has it all. Season 8 has it all, and it does it in a better, because at that point, that's when it really hit its stride in terms of writing, and just each episode really can stand on its own. There isn't a weak episode in season 8, as you have even said. With your season has weak episodes itself. With season 8, there isn't one you can pick out and say that's a weak episode that you could do without. But there are episodes in season 3 that you could actually take out and just be like, yeah.
You misquoted me there. I didn't say mine had weak episodes. I said even my what would be considered relatively the weaker episodes are still pretty good. Your season has some pretty weak episodes. It has, and forgive me, I don't remember the episode's name, but the one where Marge opens a pretzel business. I mean, that was filler. The Mary Poppins episode. Just some real filler episodes in that season. Where season 3, like I said, every episode,
it's not serialized storytelling, so nothing is. It's episodic storytelling, so nothing was really a filler episode. It's just that's a story they wanted to tell and wanted to do. And while you may not have enjoyed them, those are really nice episodes where you get to really see Marge with the comedy and everything, and it just seeing where these characters come from. I think season 8, in terms of why I think it's the best and why it is the best, is while you get these comedy and everything, you really get to see more of a character exploration with all of these characters and seeing where they really come from and really what really makes them tick. Because at that point with season 8, the writers had really figured out who these characters were and what really made them tick, and they were able to put that in the writing. With season 3, you really don't get that because they're still just going for the comedy and stuff, which can be nice overall. But in terms of a show that, with what I think is great, it's something that has that nice blend of comedy and also seeing the characters and everything like that.
I would disagree with you because I think season 3 is where they really start to get to the core of their characters. And you keep bringing up heartfelt moments. You keep talking about the heartfelt moments. The first few seasons, and like I said, it peaks at season 3, is where you really start to see that like family sitcom comedy. By season 8, the show had really just leaned more into the absurdity of it, and you really didn't have a lot of that like heartfelt moments. Like it was all about like just how crazy and ridiculous these characters could be.
And
so I mean,
what makes season 8 so great, though, is you bring up the absurdity. The fact that it was able to have this absurdist form of comedy, but at the same time still have these nice, deep character moments in a term of absurdist. Because, yes, the twisted world of Marge, while you say it isn't that great episode, it's Marge starting a pretzel business and then having to get assistance from the mob. And, like, yeah, while that's absurd and everything, it's just the absurdist comedy along with the character moments is something that you really can explore in terms of everything like that.
I don't know. I just feel like there's more of that in season 3 than season 8.
All right, time. We'll get into closings. Joe, your closing is first. Time begins when you start talking.
Season 8, while you can say that it has more absurdist comedy and isn't really that much of a sitcom, that is your opinion. And while it does lean into that more absurdism, it does that in such a way that it kind of elevates the characters, because you still have these character moments that are explored within this deep absurdist world that they've created. And the writers have really figured out that this is what The Simpsons can be and what The Simpsons should be, is in terms of having this whole absurdist thing where you can still look at yourself and look at The Simpsons and be like, the world of Springfield is a fun, enjoyable world with relatable characters who are in these wacky, over-the-top situations that we really wouldn't be able to see in live-action television, so they were able to do it in animated. While season 3 has some good episodes and has some good writing, I think they're still trying to find their groove. While you think it's where they started finding their groove, that is true to an extent, but they really found their groove and they really were hitting their stride in season 8, and they were able to keep it with season 8. And that's really the prime episodes and prime season of The Simpsons.
Time. All right. So, Kirk, your closing begins when you start talking.
I'm just going to start by reiterating some of the episodes from season 3. You have, like I said, you have Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington, Stark Raven Dad, Flaming Moe's, Homer at Bat. These are episodes still almost 30 years later that people just think about. And not hardcore Simpsons fan, but just people who have watched the show casually over the years. This is still the episodes they think about. Season 8, I went back and looked those up. I barely remember those. Those are not episodes, if you're a hardcore Simpsons fan, maybe, you really like those. But those are not the iconic episodes that you get with season 3. Season 3 is where this show really came into form. Again, they're filling themselves out for season 1, season 2. Season 3, it's like, okay, we got it. Season 8 it's still good in season 8. I'm not going to say season 8 is terrible, but you're starting to lean into that, like, okay, let's just do some wacky stuff because we have all these characters we created and we can do anything with them, and we're running out of ideas for our core characters. So let's just start doing some crazy zany stuff. It starts to get a little bit derivative, a little bit, like a little bit samey. Like I said, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not season C. Season 3 is the iconic episode of The Simpsons.
Season. All right. So we will go ahead and bring in our judges. And I'm going to start with Doug. Your vote did not count last time. Where are you leaning and why?
All right, so I'm leaning towards Kirk. Just gonna get it over with. Because I think I understood where you're coming from, Joe, but a lot of your points, you started to do the same thing that you did last round. You kept going in circles with it, and kept going back in circles after Kirk tried to poke holes in it, and I didn't hear much of a comeback from it. Kirk gave me a cohesive argument of why his season was better.
All right, we're going to go to Cody. Where are you leaning and why?
There's a reason why I said that Kirk is underrated. If he plays like this any other time, watch out, Tim Brzakala. But I'll tell you right now, I think he pulled a great strategy that I really like. It says, hey, fight my fight. And he literally brought episodes that he thought were bad against Joe. And then Joe had to defend those episodes and not poke any holes in really his main episodes. So that was a hard thing to combat. So it went from defending episodes instead of seasons, and Kirk did a fantastic job. So Kirk gets my point.
All right, so with that, Kirk gets the second point, 2-0 as we get to the third question. Where
would you have voted?
Well, I would have also gone Kirk, but I'm the main host.
We have to get thrown under the bus. You're going to get thrown under the bus.
I don't have to stop and throw myself under the bus, all right? I'm the main host. Sit back down. All right, we're going to go to the third question, which is in the category of James Bond. What is the best Roger Moore James Bond film? So, Joe, we'll be starting with you. Time begins when you start talking.
So I picked for the best Roger Moore Bond film was The Spy Who Loved Me. I think what I really like about The Spy Who Loved Me is you get to see Roger Moore and you get to see him kind of hop around all these international locations and really getting to see stuff and times of being an international spy, which is something really cool and really interesting. Plus you also get to see Jaws, which is the steel-toothed assassin that is sent after them. And just in terms of Bond films and Roger Moore, well, Roger Moore doesn't really have a lot of great Bond films in terms of the best Roger Moore Bond film. It is The Spy Who Loved Me, and I'll get more into it and when we get into our actual freeform debate.
All right, Kirk, your opening begins when you start talking.
Yeah, Joe hit the nail on the head. Roger Moore's run of Bond isn't the best run of Bond movies. So I went for a movie. I looked for something that was a little more sophisticated, carried more over of some of the other Bond movies that we enjoy and like better. So I went with The Man with the Golden Gun. This is a more sophisticated story. Probably has one of the best, definitely the best Moore villain. Maybe one of the top 1, 2, 3 Bond villains ever in Scaremonger, The Man with the Golden Gun. Has a very interesting story. It's not just, Bond movies get very samey. He's going for a thing. Someone's trying to stop him from a thing. This one has a more specific plot, more unique plot that we don't see a lot in Bond movies. So I went with this one because it stood out so much from the others, especially from the Roger Moore filmography. I think Man with the Golden Gun is the best movie, and I will concede the rest of my time.
All right, we'll get right into the main rounds. Then freeform starts when you guys start talking. Have at it, guys.
So I think the thing with the man with the golden gun, while you say it's more sophisticated, I think that's why it actually makes it a little bit of a worse Roger Moore movie. As Roger Moore, I think, which we both agree and we both hit the nail on the head. Roger Moore is probably the weakest of the Bonds, besides maybe Pierce Brosnan, but he was only like 2 movies. But that's besides the point. But with the Spy Who Loved Me, I think it's just it's the reason I think it's the best, and it actually is the best, is you get to see something that we see. Of course, with a lot of Bond films, he's kind of stuck to either one or 2 locations, but doesn't really get to be a experienced globe-trotting spy that we kind of hear him being touted about. But we actually get to see that within The Spy Who Loved Me, with him traveling across the world. He goes to Austria, he goes to Egypt, he goes to Sardinia, and he's able to go through all of these different places to kind of, try to fight off Stromberg and get the submarine back. And yes, all the Bond movies are very samey in that, but I think it's something that really does something interesting, because we get to see Roger Moore just be this very fun, adventurous spy, which is kind of what they were trying to do with the Roger Moore era of Bond movies, and that's where it really was able to hit the fun action adventure spy that they were going for, was within the spy.
I would agree with you that he does go a lot of places in this movie, but when he goes to these places, nothing happens. He literally goes somewhere and he meets with somebody. He goes to that guy, with that guy in the desert, and he's like, "Oh, go here and talk to this guy." And then he goes and talks to that guy, and that guy says, "Oh, go here and talk to this guy." So he's literally just going from place to place, and nothing's happening. It's a very dull, flat, especially the first, I'd say, half of this movie. It's just very boring, because he's, like I said, he's literally just traveling place to place, tracking down one person after another with no results anywhere. You brought up Stromberg. Let's talk about our villains. Stromberg is a very generic villain. He's just a Blofeld stand-in. His motivation is ridiculous. He wants to live under the water, so he's going to blow up the world. It's very generic. He has a very generic death. Scaramanga, the man with the golden gun, on the other hand, is a very unique Bond villain. He's an anti-Bond. He's not there to like take over the world or destroy the world. He wants to match wits with James Bond. He just has this motivation where he wants to face the best, and James Bond is the best. And in that cat and mouse game with them, it's a very sophisticated story. It reminds me of stuff we see further down the line with the Daniel Craig movies, where it's more character driven than it is just about the MacGuffin that they're chasing.
Well, you say Scaramanga, yes, wanting to match wits, but I think it's just in terms of Roger Moore, with what they're trying to do with having the fun, adventurous Bond. With Stromberg, yes, wanting to live under the sea, so he's going to blow up the earth, so it's all covered in water, is very interesting. But with Scaramanga, there are better story-driven, where there are better Bond villains than Scaramanga that really can match wits with Bond. So he's not even the strongest of the Bond villains. While it can be a sophisticated movie at parts, I think The Man with the Golden Gun tries to be so much sophisticated that you kind of lose the charm of what makes really James Bond. It can be fun and adventurous and action-packed, and when it tries to get very in itself and sophisticated, I think that's why a lot of people within Roger Moore, The Man with the Golden Gun, is where they're just like, really? Like, Roger, like, this isn't really what I want from my Bond, which is why they kind of course corrected after The Man with the Golden Gun in terms of Roger Moore films, to get more of that fun, adventurous stuff.
I would say when the biggest failure of the Roger Moore Bonds is that he's too boyish and he's too charming to a fault. It gets going to be kind of obnoxious. And the fact they toned that down in this movie is really to its credit. 2 things I want to hit real quick. We talked about villains. Let's talk about henchmen. You have Jaws, very samey villain. He's cool with the jaw. But a couple movies back in Live and Let Die, you had Teehee, same guy except with a metal mouth. He had a metal arm. So you have those big silent henchmen in every Bond movie. This movie has Teehee, and very, very fascinating character, him and his relationship with Scaramanga. Scaramanga, he wants to kill Scaramanga, and Scaramanga wants him to try to kill him to keep testing him. He wants to kill Scaramanga so he can take over his estate and everything he owns. So it's a fascinating character study and a very different relationship between the henchmen that you see in any other movie in this one.
But we don't go to Bond movies for the henchmen. While you can say that the henchmen can be a nice little, I think Teehee and Scaramanga, if you want to really focus on them as the character thing, then you're not getting into what a James Bond movie is. You're saying that it's a good
James Bond's not about villains and henchmen. That's 90% of the thing is.
But it's about Bond as the thing, and what you're talking about with your movie is more about its villain and its henchman. But within The Spy Who Loved Me, you really get to see James Bond just being a spy, using his charms, using his wits, getting the better of people.
Let me hit one more point here, Joe, and you can come back at me, but I want to get this in the final minute. Other major problem with Spy Who Loved Me is Agent XXX. Starts as a really interesting character. She wants to kill Bond because Bond killed her lover. And at the end, she tells Bond in the middle of the movie, "I'm going to kill you because you killed my lover." And then at the end, it's the two of them face off. They're the only ones left. And she's like, "I'm going to kill you now." And like, "Oh, cool, this is a tense moment." And Bond literally just gives her like kind of a smile and a wink, and they end up in bed together because Bond has to end up in bed with her. And it's like one of the worst examples of how Bond treats the Bond movies treated women back then. I mean, she's this very interesting character that they just turned basically into a sex toy for Roger Moore.
They don't turn her into a sex toy for Roger Moore. It's really kind of showing that the Bond is such this charming that he doesn't need to fight her to defeat her, that he can defeat her with his charm and his wits and get her in bed.
We're going to cut the sex toy talk there. We're going to go right into closings. And we're going to go ahead. We will start with Kirk first on closings. Time again when you start talking.
Yeah, like I said, I think The Man with the Golden Gun has it all. It has a fantastic villain with a fantastic henchman, and the relationship between them two is fantastic. The relationship with the Bond girl in this one is a little more finessed. It's not perfect, but it's more finesse than it is in the other movie. It's just a great story. Like I said, cat and mouse, character driven that you don't get in a lot of Bond movies of this era. The Spy Who Loved Me, like I said, he goes a lot of places, but it's boring. The story stalls out a lot of areas. The villain is generic. His motivation is pointless. It ends in just a big battle between good guy and bad guy henchmen, like every Bond movie did back then. Very, very samey. It treats the Bond girl horrible. It sets her up to be a very interesting character and just kind of dumps all over that at the end, just to give Roger Moore his chance to get in the sack with the leading lady. But yeah, in all intents purposes, Man with the Golden Gun is much superior film.
Time. All right, Joe, your closing begins when you start talking.
So The Man with the Golden Gun, while you say it's sophisticated, that's really kind of it, and has an interesting villain and an interesting henchman. While that is true, that's not really what would make a great and amazing Bond film, because that's only two components. When I think of Bond, I think of the charmer, the spy who can do what he wants and get what he wants. And while you say that Agent XXX, while that she's reduced at the end, she's not reduced at the end. It's more to explore that James Bond doesn't only need his skills and his gadgets to do anything. That he can be a charmer and thing, and it doesn't slow and stall out when he's exploring these places. It's him talking to people. It's him doing spy work, which is more than just stealthing around and using gadgets. It's him communicating with people and talking with people. With The Man with the Golden Gun, yes, he can match wits with Scaramanga, but that's and he and Scaramanga have an interesting relationship, but that isn't what really when you think of Bond. You have Bond and you think of the Bond girls, and XXX is one of the best Bond girls, and James Bond in the Spy Who Loved Me is able to show off that he has the wits, he has the charm, and he can talk to people, and he can win.
All right, so we'll bring in our judges. I'm going to go ahead and start this time. I'm going to go with Kirk. I think Kirk did a better job of kind of knocking down or like building up why Man with the Golden Gun had something different from the other Bond movies. And tearing down why Spy Who Loved Me didn't. We'll go to Cody. Where are you leaning away?
I'm not 100% Joe has seen this movie, but maybe he has.
I haven't seen any Bond movies.
That's a fact, because I knew that from the get-go. Because my favorite opening of all time is, this is the best Roger Moore movie because it has Roger Moore. And I was like, okay, you haven't seen this movie. That's fair.
Roger Moore.
But hey, you fought to the bitter end, and I appreciate that. That is what I wanted, and you'll definitely get another fight. But watch out, League. Kirk Kowalkowski just got a KO, and that was a brutal one. So, this will be interesting. Doug, what do you? I'll take your job over.
No, I'm in the same boat as you guys. I think Kirk just outplayed the situation from the get-go. He it's hard to fight something that you didn't watch. You gotta at least watch these things if you're gonna vote for it.
You fought hard.
You fought hard, though. You did fight hard.
I did try to find it. I just couldn't find it online leading up to the match. I was like, how can I not find this movie?
Yeah. Well, with that, your winner, Kirk Kowalkowski by KO. Clean sweep, all 9 individual points and everything. So we'll go ahead. We'll do some quick post-match interviews. Kirk, freaking beast mode. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel bad for Joe because he didn't see Bond, and I'll tell you this: he picked the right Bond movie because The Spy Who Loved Me is my favorite Bond movie. So that was really painful to have to tear down. But I went back and rewatched them both, and I found just enough to say, okay, yeah, here's what's wrong with it. But yeah, so that was tough. The first 2, I thought he was going to have me on The Simpsons, and he made some really good arguments for his fight in the Rocky battle. So, I mean, Joe, it looks bad on the scoreboard, but you gave it your all and you did a great fight. I mean, even though, I came out on top, with every point, I think it was a lot closer with each individual one. So I don't feel too bad about that. And just, excited. I'm excited about the changes you guys were talking about because that makes me feel a little better. And we'll see what happens next.
Absolutely. Is there anyone you might want to consider fighting next in the Nerdgasm ring?
I don't know who are the big. I get confused which league is which. I just show up for the fights.
The good one, and then we're the good one, and everything else.
Yeah,
I think we'll talk about it. So you're now 2-0, right? Is that correct? I assume you're 2-0. So the winner of Boatman versus David Goodger, I think, could be lined up in your shot.
Could be a potential thing that we see in the future. I'd have to go look at Tim's schedule.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take it.
But that could be a potential.
I've faced off against Dave in other areas before. I'm trying to remember where. Again, everything runs together, but I've debated him before. He's really good at it. And, Boatman's, he's pretty good at everything. So one of those guys will be fun.
He's 75 years old. Yeah,
absolutely. It's gonna be fun beating up an elder, getting church's elder abuse. But we'll go ahead and we'll go over to our unfortunate loser today, Joe. You did give it your all. It's hard when you get slapped with a category that you don't really know. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. I knew it was going to be an uphill battle with Bond because I was trying to locate a version because I'm not a big fan of Bond and I really didn't want to pay to see it, and all the digital versions are $3 or more, and so I was I'm sorry, $3 isn't really worth it, so that's on me. But I had a lot of fun. I always have fun when I'm on call with Kirk. I think I should have just brought in my Dexstar energy because I can convince me I should have just brought in my Dexstar energy. # top 12 DC villain Dexstar. But yeah, I just had a lot of fun. And who else is 1-1 in the league? Because I'll go against anyone who was 1-1.
I don't even know if we have a 1-1. You might be our only 1-1 right now. I know we have a couple 1-2s floating around somewhere that we could maybe set up. I know we have some couple people yet to debut who might want to play. We'll see what happens. But
yeah, I was gonna say I'll just go up. I just like having fun. I just like being able to talk dirty. I am a little bit sad because Fox Animation is something that I really enjoyed. But hey, I also like talking movies and with Fandom TV being gone. But yeah, I just like having fun and this is the stuff. Nerdgasm is a really fun league. I retired from the Forsaken Dragon Zone. So I really like that I get to still be in debate in here.
Cody Newberry on a very important call with the President of the United States with that cell phone. It's a direct line.
Direct line.
He's got a direct line to Batman with that phone. But we'll go ahead and we'll go over to Doug. Doug, any final thoughts you want to give before we wrap this one up? And a nice little bow for Tim Brzakala.
No. Tim, have fun editing this. Yeah, let's have fun with the season.
This is going to be a fun season indeed. Cody's very busy. He's got to go fight someone in Guam. Something about a giant robot. But we'll go ahead and we'll wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for watching Nerdgasm. We'll see you guys real soon. For everyone here, that has been Kirk, that has been Joe, that has been Doug, that has been Cody. I am in Kaleb. Cody is secretly Batman, and we'll see you guys Saturday after next with another great match.